This show is sponsored by the law firm of Tony Kalagarakis and Associates. Tony Kalagarakis has been considered an emerging lawyer and super lawyer in Illinois and New York, is the winner of the Assyrian Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year, and current president of the Assyrian American Bar Association. If you're seriously injured in an accident, call the Assyrian American lawyer Tony Kalagarakis for a free consultation at 847-982-9516 or visit his website at injuryrights.com.
Shalom Alochun, my name is Nadia Younan and I'm a fourth-year Ph.D. candidate at the University of Toronto. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts Specialized Honours in Music from York University, as well as a Master of Arts in Ethno-musicology from York University. My background is in saxophone performance, but I also play piano and do choir vocals.
Dear viewers, thank you for joining me at another episode of Assyrian Feminine Power. Tonight, again, I'm honored to introduce to you another empowered Assyrian woman, Nadia. Nadia, welcome to Assyrian Feminine Power. Nadia, you were born and raised in Canada into a half Assyrian, half Italian family, but you have honored your Assyrian heritage. Your dad is Assyrian. I would like to hear from you, how did your dad teach you your Assyrian heritage while you were growing up?
Well, I think that my family had a large role to play in how I came to appreciate my Assyrian heritage, and both of my parents always kept me very close with both sides of my family, but my Assyrian family, and I grew up very close with my grandparents as well. So fostering that type of relationship with my Assyrian family in Toronto gave me a sense of Assyrian community, because growing up the community there was still relatively small. And my father was quite young, he was a teenager when he came to Canada. So a lot of the stories about back home are stories that I would actually get from my grandparents. And so always encouraging me to visit my grandparents and respect my grandparents allowed me the opportunity to learn so much from them. And also I have to say that I'm very fortunate that the majority of my Assyrian family all lived within 20 to 30 minutes from each other in the greater Toronto area.
Do you have any childhood memories that you remember from your Assyrian side of the family that you would like to share?
Sure. I feel like a lot of my memories from childhood are very sensory. So, for example, the smells of certain food, kabahamoth, or certain sites. For example, I always remember my grandparents had a large rug hanging over their fireplace that was a relief, a picture of, King Ashurbanipal. And also, I had lots of cousins, and there was always a wedding to go to. So going to these Assyrian weddings and hearing Assyrian music, or if it was just hearing Assyrian music in the house or driving in the car with my dad. And in particular, I always remember my grandmother had one room in her house that smelled like drying mint, because she always had mint drying on the table. And that's such an important ingredient in so many of our foods. So I can't say that there's just one particular event or something somebody said to me, but a mix of these sensory experiences, sights and smells and visions. I think that those are my childhood memories.
Nadia, as you mentioned in your bio, you're a fourth-year Ph.D. candidate in ethnomusicology. Can you elaborate more on that, what it exactly means?
Yes. So ethnomusicology is the study of music and its cultural context. And although I have a background in performing music, I always found that something that intrigued me more than performing and being an active musician was understanding why music moves people and how it doesn't matter where you're from in this world, every group of peoples has some sort of music tradition. And I found that that always drew me into wanting to learn more about different types of music, but more specifically what music means to people, or how certain music traditions come about or stay alive, and what those come to mean for the communities who perform them. And so ethnomusicology as a research field is a grounds for me to pursue those particular interests of mine.
And you've chosen to specifically look into the connection between Assyrians and the music in your research. Why did you choose to do that?
Well, my master's degree was about Italian music, actually, and I worked with the Italian diaspora in Toronto. But I had in the back of my mind an idea for a project on Assyrian music, but I knew that that would be a bigger project and would take more time. And a PhD is on average 4 to 6 years. I decided to pursue my PhD in ethnomusicology because I wanted to understand more the role that music plays for the Assyrian diaspora when they are geographically fragmented into so many different countries. I felt that that was a much larger undertaking, particularly when the Assyrians as a community are also a stateless nation. And so how does music hold people together, dance as well, under these types of circumstances? And I decided to also pursue a PhD in Assyrian music and diaspora studies because of the, I think, deep appreciation that my father, but also my Assyrian grandparents instilled in me. And I just wanted to learn more. I guess part of this was a little bit of a selfish undertaking, because it's actually been a great experience for me to get to know so many people in the global Assyrian community and to learn more through my research, not just about the Assyrians and their music, but also about myself and who I am.
You have expanded your research into different diaspora communities, such as California, for the past couple of weeks. Tell us more about your research. What are you exactly researching? What questions are you asking? Who are you meeting?
Sure. So my research looks at how communities form or reform under circumstances of forced migration, refugeehood, emigration. And so one of the things I'm trying to understand is, how do you create an identity through your cultural expressions? Food, music, dance, poetry. And my particular research also looks at memory and how we create a collective memory about our modern Assyrian heritage through songs. For example, artists like Linda George and Ashabet Sargis, they reference Assyrian motifs in their song, such as Lamasu, or referring to Bet Nahren, we're talking about a particular place. And then there are older songs such as Yanishat Khoma, and modern ones too that mention particular villages. Like Yanishat Khoma mentions Tiari, for example, which we don't see on modern day maps. So how is that place located and archived, documented in a particular song?
Nadia, while you were growing up, you started elementary school, for instance, we change our mind about what we want to become in the future so many times while we were growing up, of course. When was the moment or the year that you decided what you wanted to do with your educational path, with your career and future?
I decided towards the end of high school. It was rather last minute. I had to decide between pursuing a career in journalism or pursuing a career in music and possibly ethnomusicology further down the line. And I had a teacher Her name was Mrs. Mancuso, I still remember. And I told her I can't decide if I should pursue this path in music or go into journalism. Because with the arts, people are a little bit weary and, oh, music, what are you going to do with that? And I remember she told me to stop thinking about it so hard and to let a little prayer go out into this world and to sleep on it. And it sounds so simple, but I did. I remember I just let it all go, and I woke up the next morning and told my mom and dad that I was going to pursue music in post-secondary education. And I surprised a lot of people who all thought I was going to go into journalism or something similar. But here I am 10 years later, and I know absolutely in my heart that I made the right decision.
I was going to ask you when you discovered your talent for music, but I think you kind of answered my question. You play a couple of musical instruments. Why did you learn it? Why did you choose for these specific instruments?
Okay, so that's a bit of a funny story. When I was about 8 years old, I had a lot of little friends on my street, and the popular thing at that time was that they were all taking piano lessons. So I just wanted a keyboard because I thought it looked fun, and I asked my parents for one, and they said, yeah, sure, we'll get you a keyboard, but you have to take lessons. So I said, okay. And I started taking piano lessons. Piano is actually my first instrument. And I just never let it go. But I found an instrument before I found music. I actually didn't know that I was going to have that particular passion grow. And I auditioned for a specialty arts program in high school, and they told me you can audition with the piano, but if you get into the program, you have to choose a band instrument. I wasn't sure which band instrument I wanted to play, but the saxophone looked really cool. And I think I've always thought that the saxophone has a very sharp and smooth sound. As well, I had started to develop an interest in jazz music, and the saxophone is a very prominent instrument in jazz music. So I started playing the saxophone, and the piano will always be my first instrument, but the saxophone is my main instrument. And I think part of that is that with a saxophone, you have to breathe into the instrument to make the sound, to give it life. And I think that having that sort of connection with your instrument and with your sound just speaks more to me. However, in a way, I feel like the piano is the queen of instruments, and even when I think of music theory, I always think in terms of the piano, although saxophone is the main instrument that I play.
You have also contributed to Assyrian events such as Christmas in Assyria. Why did you choose to be a part of that concert?
I was invited by the organizers to play saxophone in the stage band for the concert, and so far we haven't had too many opportunities like that in Canada, so it was a great initiative, and it allowed me the opportunity to get to know a few other Assyrian performers on stage who were in the stage band, and we had a lot of fun rehearsing, playing Assyrian music that was arranged for the band in that particular setting was, for me, a very unique experience. And then on the final day of performance, just being on stage with local and more international singers such as Iwan Agassi, Sargon Yohanna, Dawood Isha, Stella Rezgo, to be on stage with them, to be performing their songs with them as they're singing, is really an indescribable feeling. It was a bit surreal, and I'm very grateful that that invitation was extended to me to participate in the Christmas concert.
We all have that one person we call, no matter what the situation or event. Who do you call when you've had a stressful day at work? When you get the news that you're having your first child, or that you landed your dream job? Now, what if you or a loved one have been injured and need advice? Who do you call? Think about it.
When I met you, I told you that I wanted to have you as a guest on Assyrian Feminine Power because I believe that your story is inspiring to many other young girls who perhaps are watching today. I want them to be inspired and empowered by your story for following your passion and choosing what you wanted to do in life and going after it. And today I see a very successful young lady in front of
Thank
me
you.
that soon is going to be graduating for her Ph.D. What do you think that your story has in it, your life story, your challenges, that could inspire other women?
First of all, I want to say that my story is unique in the way that my experiences are not exactly the same as anybody else's, but I don't think it's unique in that we are so fortunate to have amazing Assyrian women, that some of which you've interviewed, and so I think that what I would say from my story in particular, though, is when you choose to go into something that is not as common, when you follow a path not taken as often, when you tell people, I'm going to go into the arts and I'm going to put everything into it, I'm going to perform, I'm going to research, you tend to get some funny looks. But I knew that there was a story that needed to be told. I know that being a member of the Assyrian community, I have a special kind of access and connection to this particular research that I'm doing. And I feel like my background in performing was a stepping stone to where I am now, because there are so many transferable skills. And along the way, there were people who didn't understand what I was doing, but I was very fortunate that I always had the support of my parents and my good friends, so I have to thank all of them. And I was always actually surrounded by such strong and incredible women. My mother, my grandmothers, and my aunts. I have so many wonderful aunts. So my suggestion, or if I can offer even just a crumb of wisdom, is to not lose sight of the destination and to be open to your experiences on the path that you decide to take. And when you have people who put you down, use them as a positive challenge to be even more sure of yourself, and look at failure and success both equally as teachers.
So Nadia, we all have an inspiration that we live by every single day, perhaps. What inspires you on a daily basis to continue with your research and your studies?
One of the reasons that I love what I do is because so much of my work involves being with people, getting to know people, and having people share their stories with me. I do a lot of individual interviews as well as attending events and observing our community. And I think that what inspires me is the hope and the perseverance that I see in so many people who open up and share their stories with me, and knowing how much many members of our community have had to move around and been uprooted and then have to root themselves again, and still there's life. And I think seeing that and seeing how people speak about their culture, about their music, and the way that these types of expressions speak to them, heal them, make them feel part of a larger community, I think really inspires me to not lose hope or faith in myself either. Yeah.
Nadia, my purpose with this show is to empower women. I don't want women to be jealous or to think that the success of another woman means their failure. Rather than another woman's success, I want them to use that success to lift themselves up. Have you seen jealousy within women while you're doing your research and growing up?
I think it would be unfair to say that I've just seen jealousy amongst women. I think that perhaps that is one of the flaws of human nature, and everybody has their internal struggles. I think it's important to keep in mind that everybody has a story, and just because somebody is successful at a particular moment in time, you don't know what their story was before that. And I think we always have to have, or keep in mind, trying to have compassion for one another and supporting each other, especially within the Assyrian community. We're a relatively small community in a very big world, and I think it's very important that we positively encourage one another to be our best selves and to come together as a community.
Nadia, last but not least, how do you think we can empower each other as women?
I think that empowering each other has to also coincide with self-empowerment. And I think that in order to respect each other and to be helpful and supportive of one another, we as individuals also have to have self-respect and integrity. And it's not always easy. Everybody has challenges in their lives. So I think that to empower other women means to also have faith in yourself. And when you are strong, you're able to also be strong for others. That way, when you have moments where maybe you need a little bit more help, you know that those who you lean on are also strong supports for you. So I think that it's a bit of a back and forth between, as I said, integrity, self-respect, in order to be able to support each other mentally, spiritually, emotionally.
Thank you, Nadia. That is a great answer. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to have you back after you graduate and find out more about your research. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me again and empowering and inspiring Assyrian women with me everywhere. Do not forget to visit my YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram.
This show is sponsored by the law firm of Tony Kalagarakis and Associates. Tony Kalagarakis has been considered an emerging lawyer and super lawyer in Illinois and New York, is the winner of the Assyrian Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year, and current president of the Assyrian American Bar Association. If you're seriously injured in an accident, call the Assyrian American lawyer Tony Kalagarakis for a free consultation at 847-982-9516 or visit his website at injuryrights.com.